My name is Seth Christensen. This is the Got Any Cows podcast. As Jonathan LaRue says, I may not know anything about anything else, but I do know a lot about cows.
You know cows.
So we're recording a podcast episode today about the upcoming auction that we've got going on. And today we do not have our typical background that we would have behind us because it's dark, it's late, it's really hard to get everything done in daylight hours. So fill us in on the day today, John. What's the day been like for you guys, and how did it all wrap up as far as why we're filming in the dark tonight?
We've just been like sitting around drinking hot chocolate. You know, that's all we've been doing all day.
The last 60 days.
If you ask any of our neighbors, our dairy farmers, they're convinced that anybody that owns cows only works like 2 days a year, right?
Right.
So they're convinced that's all we do.
Mm-hmm.
No, today's been nuts. You know, all winter's been nuts. You know, we've been heavily breeding cows for the last month. We are into the winter schedule. It's different. We're not rotating cows on pasture. We're most of the way past our calving season. We still are having some calves born. In the wintertime now, we got snow and ice on the ground here and there. We've had some warmer weather come through, so now it's muddy, and the mud and mess just makes outside work terrible, right? I think everyone hates the mud that's ever worked outside.
Yeah, the mud is almost worse than the ice. I mean, it's nice that it's warm, but then you're like trudging anywhere you're trying to go,
right? You
know, versus walking on top of the frozen stuff.
Yeah, and it's just a mess, and yeah, everyone hates mud. So we've been dealing with some mud, been dealing with some ice. We've had snow flurries come through, so we have some baby calves. Got to, watch out for the baby calves, keep them warm when they need to. Had one born today, so we brought it in, warmed it up, got it sucking on mom, doing great. I think you've probably been as busy as anybody, as busy as it's been outside, just feeding cows. And all day, Seth is telling us when a heifer's coming into heat or which recips have come into heat and what needs bred and what needs stickers put on. And so we know and keep track of when each cow comes into heat so we can keep our success rates up for our embryo transfers. Right. So that is the bulk of our day. A lot of times is just pulling these cows in. Yep. This cold weather, those EstroTech stickers are awesome. They're great, but they don't always stick on. Yeah. They can fall off. So that's, I don't know how many cows every day we've had to replace stickers on.
Well, and I think it's like, for most people, if you're breeding cows, you're kind of just dumping a bull out, and the job's functionally done because the bull will find the cows in heat, he'll breed them, and, the job's done. But for us, I mean, where everything we're doing is embryo transfer and AI, like there is no bull. A whole pile of bulls here, but none of them are where the cows are. Yeah. They're all separated. And so every single one of those heats, catching the heat we have to catch it. We have to catch it precise, and so like you said, I mean, we're pulling cows all day every day trying to catch heats, and we're running both those EstroTech patches, to catch heats, in addition to the cow manager sensors that are in all of their ears that are electronically monitoring, and neither one of the two technologies is perfect on its own.
Right, those sensors go bad sometimes, or you have a battery die on them, or the cow's out of range and then it's not reading to the router. All sorts of problems that make it just more complicated, more time consuming. Takes up a lot of time to do everything that we do all the time. So well, and you miss one heat one time, and now you're 3 weeks later getting a calf here. A cow cycles on average once every 3 weeks, and if we catch the heat but we're not precise in how we catch it, then we don't time things just right with the AI or the embryo transfer, and so then they don't get pregnant anyway, so then you're still 3 weeks behind. Or you miss the heat entirely, and so then you're 3 weeks behind there. So it's December always feels like I should be getting way more done than what I am. Like, honestly, I'd have rather have gotten this auction done a month ago, if I could have. But with how many cows we're trying to get bred all at once and checking them 2 times a day manually, and then like you guys are doing, adding all the stickers and keeping everything fed and calving cows and moving things around and preg checking cows and implanting cows and sorting cows and doctoring cows and
keeping pairs together and
pairs
watching
together,
all that,
collecting semen from our bulls that we're using to breed right now. We got to haul the bulls down and get semen collected and get donors aspirated so we have embryos to implant.
Yes. Yeah. And then doing all that through December means we're doing it through holidays, and so then the schedule's just insane because it's important that everybody gets family time. It's important to you, to me, to all of the people we work with, but when you're dealing with one guy that's doing your embryo transfer work and another guy that's doing your IVF work and another guy that's doing your semen collections and some more guys that are helping us bring all the cattle through to sort them and stage them and sync them and things like that, and then I got to be catching catching the heat, and you got to be running them through and getting everything ready to implant. And then we got to work with the vet's office to be able to get our preg checks done and things like that. Getting all those schedules to come together when one of the weeks in December is Christmas and another week there is New Year's, and the front edge of it is basically Thanksgiving, anyway, it is a sketch. And then there's only 8 hours of daylight. I mean, maybe 10 hours of daylight. I guess we're 7:30 till 5:30. So yeah, like 10 hours of daylight. But you're always right up, just like tonight. We're chasing bulls all over Kingdom Come.
In the dark.
In the dark, because you run out of light.
Right.
There just didn't enough time to do it all.
Hour and a half late starting our podcast that we were supposed to start an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's just textbook this time of year. So here we are going into the auction, and I mean, we're still getting everything finalized, getting everything ready, getting everything prepped. And I've had a lot of people reach out, excited about the auction and looking for, details about it. And so I thought, what makes the most sense rather than answer the same question 100 times is record it once. And that's the beauty of the podcast, is that we can do that. We can go through this auction. You and I can sit down, chat the auction, talk about what's in it. And I mean, I'll say right up front, I mean, we could still add a lot or two, between now and the day the auction runs on January 15, or we could pull a lot or two, depending on if there's an animal that we don't think is ready for sale, or if there's an animal that sells private treaty or whatever it may be. There could still be some tweaks between today and the day they sell on January 15th on Smart Auctions. So.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've had a lot of people interested and asking you lots of questions, which is good. That's great to have people wanting what we have and what we can offer them and help them with. So. Where would you like to start off with the auction? I mean, I come in, I was hoping to get more of a heads up or more planning time to talk to you about stuff. I honestly have no idea what is in the auction yet. I'm here on the auction
some
podcast.
Some of the cows that are out there.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. Which ones are you selling?
Pull and grab some cows,
Anyways, I guess what's feature one? That's usually the lot that everyone's interested in. What's your featured one?
Yeah. So a couple of the lots that we're going to open with, for the first time, we're going to offer some IVF aspirations. So maybe, John, I mean, just because it's you that physically does a lot of this, and I'll go on a little bit of a detour here, but yesterday we all went on a field day and went, So I'll tell a quick story, and then we'll get something done. So yesterday we had a cow that she would not carry a natural service calf. She would not carry old cow, 18-year-old
really
cow.
Old.
Bought her this way, hadn't dealt with her prior, and she wouldn't carry. But she was close to the original imports out of Japan, is what we brought her in for.
Still in great flesh.
Looked
awesome.
And
great
feet were perfect.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Really nice looking cow. You would not have known that she was 18 years old.
Right. Yeah.
So the average person looking at her is probably gonna say she's 8,
right,
maybe 9,
right. Yeah.
10 maybe, I don't know, not 18.
Not 18.
No one would have guessed 18.
No. And
she
so
looked really good.
Looked really, really good, but we couldn't get her bred natural, couldn't get her bred AI, couldn't conventionally flush her, couldn't do a normal live IVF session. She had too much scarring in her reproductive tract. So we did a terminal OPU, and so we harvested that cow, removed the reproductive tract, took it straight to the IVF lab, and they were able to aspirate the oocytes from those ovaries at that point in time. And so in that kind of a setting, that IVF aspiration there, in that case, the ovary was outside of the cow.
Yeah.
But, it was interesting yesterday morning. So generally speaking, whenever we do all these IVF aspirations, I'll coordinate kind of, I guess, the office end of it, which cow we're going to work, which bull we're going to work her to, which recips we're going to stick it all into. But then you're the one physically making it happen. You know what I mean? And so you're the one taking the cow over and getting that done. And so yesterday, we were getting everything ready to do about the same, load her up and have you run the route like you always do. And then Ty and Aaron are like, well, we want to go on a field trip. Yeah. And I'm like, me too. I don't ever get out of the office. I was staying here and fund this thing. So anyways, I want to go on a field trip. So I went with you guys.
Right. They'd already tried asking me, and I'm like, we got cows to feed. We got all this stuff to do. You guys, I'm gonna go on the field trip. You guys gotta stay here and do the work. And then they wait till you're there. Oh, we want to go, and I talk you into going, and you being the slave driver you are, let them go and come along. Yeah.
It's about like Miles, our 2-year-old. Miles will ask his mother. It's like, can I do this? And Haley, being the responsible parent, says no. And then naturally, Miles just comes immediately to me, and I'm usually in the office busy working. Dad, can I do this? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so,
yeah.
So, anyway.
It might be the first time I've been compared to being a responsible parent. Maybe, but
that may be.
My wife's very responsible parent. She's awesome. But anyways, you let the boys come.
So there's that big loop. So we went over there to WinStar, who does our IVF work. And anyway, really neat facility there. And I mean, and Kevin and Ty are just awesome. You know, Dr. Crandall that does the aspirations.
Just
and
super great. Really
Ty
nice.
that runs the lab. Yeah, super folks. And so anyway, so that's what an IVF aspiration is. In that case, a terminal aspiration versus a live one. But walk people through what an IVF aspiration is. Like, what does that even look like for you physically taking the cow to the facility? You know, what even is an IVF aspiration?
Sure. So the embryologist or vet, I guess, he goes in there. They basically have it's almost like an ultrasound machine. It's not.
It is. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, so it is an ultrasound machine.
Yep.
So they can go a little rod, I guess, that goes in the cow, and he goes and manipulates the ovaries and sticks a little. It's got a little vacuum in it, and he'll go in there and just suck the fluid out that those oocytes are in. And then they will retrieve those out of the cow, take them into the lab, put them under a microscope. Ty will go in there, search them, find the good ones, find how old they are, the quality of them, and then he will do his magic in his lab and introduce semen into them a little while after that and begin the process of growing embryos in the lab. And then we get them about 7 days later as embryos that we can stick into cows fresh if they leave them in an incubator and bring them over in an incubator. We've implanted fresh embryos here, IVF, or they can freeze them at that point, and then you're able to implant them at any point after that. So it is a pretty cool process, and the stuff we can do, and the ability to spread that semen out across multiple embryos instead of just breeding one cow or whatever is pretty awesome. So I think we've seen a lot of good things come out of it with our processes that we've used this year.
Right. Saying IVF does open up a lot of options, and it can be challenging. You know, there's some challenges inherent with IVF, and we'll actually we'll do a full episode with Ty and or Kevin in the future, and get some professional insight there as far as their process and all of what they do. But really valuable people to work with. And so in the auction, we're going to offer. This is the first time we've offered aspirations as a lot for sale. So just trying to kind of, I guess, help people understand what is being offered. So say somebody buys lot one. So lot one is going to be one IVF session on the E133 cow. Okay. And so E133 is going to be a direct daughter of Judo. So Judo would be one of your 1976 Japanese imports. So the bull's been dead and gone, obviously, for a long time. Semen's really limited. Usually costs about $4,000 a straw to buy a straw of Judo. Can go as high as $10,000 a straw. But then what's neat on her as well is the maternal side of that pedigree traces right back to Japanese original imports as well. So she is a
Judo over Big Al, over Hikari, over Judo, over Homare.
A really neat, original pedigree there. And looking at that kind of a cow, what you would have as far as like what you would receive if you bought lot one, you're not buying the cow outright, but you're also not buying finished completed embryos. You're buying the right to one IVF session. So just like John, just like you just described there, you'd be able to take that cow, and obviously we're going to do all of this for the winning bidder. But they're going to be, so E133 as she currently sits is actually short-term bred. She's confirmed pregnant right now, but you can still IVF a pregnant cow. And so the winning bidder would say, hey, I want to IVF E133 to, insert a bull's name here. We'll say Big Al, right?
Sure.
And the buyer would be responsible for the semen cost. The buyer would be responsible for the production cost. So they're going to pay both for the semen that's part of that process. Or I guess I should say, backing up, they would pay for the IVF aspiration. They pay whatever the winning bid is. And we'll see what that is. This is our first time selling one of those aspirations. So we'll see where that lands. They'd pay us for the right to aspirate. And then they'd need to pay for the semen and send us whatever semen they want to use. And then they would be paying the lab for the production costs for making those embryos. But that would give you the option to produce embryos from a direct daughter of Judo without having to spend the money to buy a direct daughter of Judo. And you can see when the auction catalog opens, you'll be able to see right there on Smart Auctions a picture of this female as well. Sharp female, good-looking female. She did breed first service AI, which I always appreciate when a female will do that. So I think bringing in a pedigree like she does, bringing in the phenotype that she does, looking like she does, and then she's a manageable cow. She's an easy cow to be around. Doesn't cause
she's
problems.
got a good size to her. She's not like a tiny small Akushi. She's a larger framed Akushi cow.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because now that I think about it, one of the criticisms people will have of Judo specifically is that some of the judo cattle can be quite small. It can be smaller or frailer. And so, I mean, there's been the thought floated that, oh, these cattle have got like a dwarfism gene or something to them.
Sure.
Which, if I would invite anyone that has any questions about judo introducing a dwarfism gene to come visit and see this judo daughter.
Right. Yeah, no, she's
definitely not that.
No.
And I do think, a lot of that comes down to that Homari maternal line that she comes from. Those are bigger, stretchier, framier kind of cattle, higher performance kind of cattle. Our primary Homari maternal line donor here would be 121. And 121 is a high weaning weight kind of a female, a lot of frame, a lot of stretch, a lot of size. And so that's what you'd see in this female. And she's actually quite similarly bred to 121, but she's putting judo at the top of the pedigree instead of Rusha, would be the difference between those two. And so, yeah, I think that's just a unique option. And lot 2 is like unto it. It's an aspiration as well, but it's on an Angus donor. It'd be on the 2221 female.
Okay.
And she's going to be a really high performance Angus female. As far as having an animal that calves easy and grows fast. Plain and simple. I mean, she's at the top of the breed on both fronts. Quite often, those two traits are going to be, what would the term be? I want to say contradictory, but that's not the term I'm after. They would be, they run counter to one another. The more birth weight you get, the more performance you get. The less birth weight you get, the less performance you get, or less weaning weight. And this female is both a strong calving ease female, but then has a ton of growth to her with 2221. And so if somebody's looking for a pile of performance in an Angus female, so if you're looking for black, polled, big time performance, you'd want to buy that 2221 aspiration, and then obviously send an Angus bull. We'll make Angus embryos for you, and those will come back to you.
Sure.
If somebody's looking for a foundation bred Akaushi, they'd want the E133 aspiration as lot 1.
Gotcha. So my question, I guess, thinking as if I was a buyer, I guess, looking at these aspiration lots, I guess I'd want to know, have they been aspirated before? And if so, did they produce a lot? Did they not produce very many?
Sure.
I personally don't remember. I don't think we've aspirated 22, 21. I don't know about E133. I don't know if we've done her or not. Could you?
Right.
Have they been aspirated before? Do you
know? No. And those are super good questions. And that's a very valid question, because quite often a cow that has an aspiration record, they'll generally fall in a range similar to what they have been doing. E133 and 2221 do not have prior aspiration records. So one of the things I am going to do on these lots is we are going to guarantee that they'll get at least 5 embryos is what we're going to do.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know we were guaranteeing
Yeah, we'll put a guarantee on them. Yep. And so then, if the aspiration needs to be repeated, I mean, worst comes to worst, you are paying for a second aspiration. So there is the potential of increased total lab cost, but there would be no increase in the cost paid to us. You're paying to, and my thought there being, if you get 5 IVF, frozen IVF embryos in a normal conception rate environment, are going to give you a 40% success rate, which would be 2 pregnancies. And if you used conventional semen, you'd normally get 1 heifer calf. So the thought here being, if somebody comes and spends money with us to get that IVF aspiration done, we're hoping they can get a daughter.
Sure.
A daughter and a son, technically, but quite often people are pursuing that daughter. And or they could send female sexed semen and realistically have at least 2 daughters out of a scenario like that.
Awesome.
So
what are the ranges, I guess, on what, I mean, if they're guaranteed 6, which is awesome, that gives you a floor.
Well, actually, I'll guarantee them at 5. Is what
You're guaranteed
we'll
at 5.
guarantee them at 5. And I think I probably misspoke there. I think I said both 6 and 5. 5 is where I meant to be. We might have to work some editing magic after all of this, but 5 is what I meant to say.
Okay.
5 is where
5 is an awesome floor. Like you're guaranteed something out of it. So then easier to do math if you have, this is the minimum amount that I'll get. But I think we've had donors do quite a few in one aspiration, so you could be getting a lot more than 5.
Right. Yep. And that's one other thing that I would throw out there. There in an IVF aspiration, you're completely right. I mean, there's a huge range of possible results. There are cows that make none at all, in a single IVF aspiration. There are cows that'll make 20 plus in a single IVF, transferable, viable embryos. And so I guess that's an important distinction there to make, again, just to help people understand the IVF process. The oocyte count, meaning how many oocytes are initially removed that day, is not the same as the total number of transferable embryos.
Right.
And so the oocyte count is the unfertilized egg cells on day 0, the day they come out of the cow, whereas it's actually a total of 8 days later. So 1 day later they fertilize them, and then 7 days after that we're going to freeze. In this case, is what we'll do. We'll freeze and ship, and then at that point, that's when you'll know how many frozens you have, whether that's 0, whether that's 20 plus, or whether that's most of the time that's closer to like that 6 to 8 window is most normal. But I would guarantee people 5, and then up over 10. You're getting way more embryos for the same dollars up front. Is kind of what you're looking at there. So.
Oh, that seems pretty good.
Yeah. So I think a pretty unique option there, and one that we're excited to offer, and just kind of see what people make of it. And I think that's if I'm sitting as a potential buyer, and I have got semen on a unique sire that I would like to put across a cow that is, for lack of better term, almost kind of worthy of using the semen on, if you got a little more expensive semen, that is a very cost-effective way to put high-value semen across a high-end cow without having to go buy a high-end cow.
Sure.
So that would be a thought there.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm going to pull up just so I can remember, because man alive, we've been doing so many things back to back to back to back. I'd like to say, I have memorized exactly what all the lot numbers are, what everything is in it, but we are still in the assembly stage. And so just looking next, the next thing we've got coming is going to be unique and going to be fun. FX14 embryos. So FX14, a little bit of the backstory on that bull. Ashwood FX014 would be the full name on this bull. He's an Australian sire. And as the story goes on this bull, back in Australia, as he was proven out in the Australian Wagyu Association database, he is kind of the golden child of that database when it comes to red Wagyu genetics. As far as having a bull that has the most desirable EBV profile in the Australian database, FX014 would be it. And so he's a bull that's desirable, a bull that has some data behind him there. But as far as export semen, or semen to leave Australia and come to the U.S., as the story goes, there was plenty of it, but they had I don't remember if it was a shipper or a storage tank that tipped and went dry, and they lost the vast majority of all of the export qualified FX14 semen that there was.
Shocker.
Yeah.
I can't believe any shipping company would ever ruin anything.
Oh man, yeah.
At all.
So anyway you slice it, some way, somehow, all the semen went hot. And so then there's very little of it left that was ever qualified for export. So there's been very, very, very little of this bull present in the U.S. Prior to now. And so these would be some of your early FX14 genetics to come to the marketplace. And they are out of one of our very best donors. The 121 donor I mentioned earlier is a direct Rushaw daughter. So, looking at semen sales prices at large, if you look back through all the Akaushi semen sold and all the values it has traded at, the very highest valued semen would be Rushaw, that's brought up to $22,000 for a single straw. The second highest valued that I am aware of, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but would be FX14 at $10,000 a straw. So this mating is going to put a $10,000 a straw bull over a $22,000 a straw bull as the sire of 121. And then 121 is not a typical Rushaw. She's not just got an average bottom side of the pedigree. Yeah. You're looking at Hikari over Judo over Homare. Hikari, Judo, Homare on the bottom side of that pedigree. And just proven performance within our program. Mm-hmm. Those are heavy weaning cattle. Those are high performance cattle. 121 is the dam of heavyweight. Mm-hmm. Heavyweight has sired some of our very highest performing calves in our current calf crop, our 2024 babies.
And just good looking.
Oh man, they are impressive.
So
they
cool
are good.
Yeah.
And so I think, if somebody says, hey, I'm looking for something that stacks some of the most rare and valuable sire lines in the industry, but then puts a really proven and impressive female. If you get a chance, look at that catalog, look at the picture of 121. She's stout, she's thick, she's impressive, really good cow, and has proven to produce high-end calves. And so I think that's going to be a fun one for people to look at, and will be something that will be actively pursued, I would imagine.
Yeah, it should be awesome.
Yeah, we're definitely excited about that cross. The next cross that's going to be in there, again, a really unique one, sired by Uma Maru, and Uma Maru is a direct daughter of Katie Maru. So maybe tell us a little bit about Katie Maru, John. What's your opinion of Katie Maru, the clone that we have here?
She is the cow that I like to show everyone and tell everyone about. She is so good, good. I mean, just she looks good. Our Angus guys that show up here to lease an Angus bull or whatever, looking at Angus stuff, I'm like, you heard of Akushi? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, we don't want any of the Wagyu stuff. They're all skinny and whatever.
Right,
like,
right. Look
come
like
look
a
at this
Korean
cow.
Jersey cross thing.
If this cow is black, would you like her?
Right, right.
Yeah, she's real nice.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. She's not black, but she is everything else. You know, just in the pen, looking at her, like she's built, she looks awesome. She's a big cow.
Yeah.
Like no size problem there.
Right, right.
And then her demeanor is amazing too. Like awesome. Like she's the cow that likes to meet you at the gate. Like she likes she's the one that we give shots to in the pen. She's the one that you go out and pet and scratch and cuddle with, whatever you do. Yeah, she's amazing that way. And then her pedigree wise is
she's incomparable.
Yeah.
There is only one living daughter of Daiten Mitsumaru in the United States. That's it. Plain and simple. One. Like there's not two, there's not five, there's not 10, it's not rare, it's not hard to get. There's one.
Yeah.
And it's her.
Yeah. She's sitting out there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And she looks amazing.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah,
I love her. And
well, and I think that's what is so unique about her is so often, and this applies to both Angus and or Akiushi, you have animals that either are good on paper,
right,
or they are good in the pen. Either or, but not both. And this cow is both. This you know.
I think she's the only one we've ever had that is like
that is
the
to that
ultimate
extent.
both. I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah, to be at that level on both fronts, you know, and I think that's what makes her so distinct, you know, is that there's times in Angus, it's usually EPDs. Guys say, oh man, it's got this great EPD profile, but it looks terrible in the pen. Or, again, going to Angus, this cow looks fantastic in the pen, but the EPD profile is nothing to write home about. And so coming over to Akiushi, what they're looking at on paper most of the time is pedigree. And so this is a super rare and valuable pedigree. It's as rare as it gets.
Yeah.
And so quite often, if you see something that's exciting or rare or whatever on paper, you look at them in the pen, you're like, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's too bad that this
you
cool
can't look
pedigree
at them
deal.
in the pen because they're going to come after you.
This is too bad, you know. But then to go out in the pen and like you said, I mean, she's mellow, she's thick. This cow, the manners on the cow are perfect, but then the birth weights aren't out of control. You know what I mean? These babies are born light and they take off and they go. They look great. They do great. You know.
And her calves, I love her calves. We just have calved 5, 6 of her calves in the last week or so. And like some of the calves that are born, even as day-old calves, newborns, they want to headbutt you, or they want to kick you, or they want to run away from you.
From other bloodlines.
Bloodlines, not hers.
Yeah, right,
her calves. Like you bring them in to warm them up, and they just want to snuggle with you. Yeah. They come, 2 of them have come and just put their head on my knee in here, and will just love getting scratched and pet and just love it. I mean, they are distinctively very different. Like attitude-wise, they come that way. Like, and that is so cool for me to see. Like, as newborns, as day-olds, not all the day-olds are like that. Like, we've had day-olds, literally try and kick us in there from other bloodlines. It's like, what in the world? You're a freaking baby. Like, why are you trying to kill us already? Wait till you're bigger at least. No, her calves are, I mean, they're special. And they all look good. They all have the same look. They got a similar build. I mean, they're just all good. Like, they're going to be good as they get bigger, too. They have the look. They have the attitude. I'm just like, man, I love all of them. Like, getting her calves on the ground is awesome.
Oh, so. Yeah. And the Katie Maru cattle are fantastic and really good. And so, I mean, to be able to bring in some of those genetics through her son, which is Uma Maru, and then Uma Maru is one of those bulls, again, we talk about proven cattle, you know what I mean? Something that's got animals on the ground, got calves on the ground, got, carcasses in the hanging room, you know what I mean? Across the board, those cattle are proven. And you'd be hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't like Uma Maru, because those cattle they're mellow, they're well mannered, they grow quickly, they look impressive in person, they look impressive on the rail, they marble extremely well. And so having all of those traits, coming from Uma Maru, then the question really just becomes having a good enough cow to put him across. Because quite often, and this is one of the real challenges in the breed right now, is that there's really, really good bulls that kind of get put across any given cow and just kind of mass produced that way. And so having the 3423 heifer is the donor, and 3423 herself is a direct daughter of Master Chef. And so Master Chef would be another one of the rare and valuable Australian sires, difficult to get, costs a lot of money to get. And the Master Chef bull brings Ume to the front of the pedigree via Kajikari. And so you're getting some unique outcross blood in that sense. But then in addition to that, 3423 herself is backed by the 2077A female. And so she's going to be backed by
Big Al over Shigamaru, over Tamamaru, over Akiko.
a straight foundation pedigree. So what you're looking at here is bringing Katie Maru to the very front. Right behind that is Master Chef. So again, just like we talked about FX14 and Rushaw being two super high value bulls, in this case you've got Uma Maru that sold up to $7,500 a straw, and Master Chef that sold up to $5,000 a straw, and those are the first two bulls at the front of the pedigree. And then it's straight foundation behind that and dual registered. And so again, just like the FX14 121s, you can register them dual registered, and or they will be triple registered, meaning you could register them in the American Wagyu Association, in the American Akaushi Association, in the Australian Wagyu Association. I mean, pick your poison where you want to put them, but you can register them anywhere. And so I think, again, and especially to get them as embryos, I mean, that is a really, really cost-effective option for somebody that's willing to roll the dice on, embryology is tricky and it's got its challenges and there's hurdles to jump there.
Right.
But you can get a really, really good purchase price on some really, really rare and valuable and difficult to acquire genetics.
I just don't know how you can get any better than that either. No. Thinking about my God, this is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
And that's not just saying it. That's like me believing it and seeing it, and I don't know how you beat that.
Yeah, well, and the 3423 heifer is another one of those. If you come and see that heifer in the pen, you'll notice the female. She's big, stretchy, growthy, framey kind of a female. She follows that Master Chef look as far as there's being some additional size, stretch, and performance to those cattle.
Yeah.
And so I think, for people to have an opportunity to get into bulls like this, to get into things like, I mean, we're only 4 lots deep, and we're already talking about probably, 5 of the 6 highest valued bulls in the breed as far as price per straw.
Right.
As you're looking at Judo and FX14 and Rushaw and Uma Maru and Master Chef, and they are not over sloppy pedigrees. I think that's another one of those things I really want to hammer down on. These are not just a cow on the bottom side. It is not just something with a pulse or something with a set of papers.
Yeah.
These are straight foundation pedigrees. These are double and triple registered pedigrees. These are animals that are legitimately good in the pen. These are matings you can have confidence in.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah. So I'm comfortable with those. Moving forward, so this would be one that we mentioned in the last podcast that you and I recorded. We talked about maternal lines, and we talked about some of the different roles those play in our genetic selection right now. And a couple of the different things that we're really trying to double down on within our genetic selection are fertility. We want to make sure there's fertility. We want to make sure there's longevity are 2 of the primary selection criteria. And the female that we're building around the most at this point for those 2 traits would be the 9961Y donor. Fertility wise, I mean, this is a cow that bred back to back 12 times. So 12 calves back to back, no problem. Looks fantastic. Top line's great, feet are great, udder's great. And then fertility as far as embryo production, very productive embryo donor. So it was really, really good on that front. And then on the longevity end of it, to have made it to that age and look like she does, is a big deal. So to have done what she's done there, and then with the pedigree she is a Tamamaru over Big Al over Himawari, and she is the only Himawari maternal line female registered in the American Wagyu Association database. Like, it is her or her or her. Like, there's not another option. If you want a Himawari maternal line female in the AWA database, there's one, and it's 9961Y. And so I think to get something that is unique like that, from a pedigree standpoint, but then again, unique from a production standpoint, I think there's some real value there. Normally, we wouldn't let anybody have any access to genetics like that until we already had calves on the ground. We're just barely making our first pregnancies now from 9961. So whoever buys this lot is going to be right there with us and making the very first calves out of 9961Y. So I wanted to offer something that would let somebody carry that maternal line forward. Specifically, and so we went with female sexed semen for the embryos that we're offering here. They are going to be Rushaw 2 female sexed embryos, and Rushaw 2 brings Rushaw on the top of the pedigree, like we've talked about, a lot of value. 1975 Japanese national champion, over top of Uma Maru in his pedigree, and so bringing Katie Maru into that pedigree, and a bull with a lot of carcass data behind him. That has done very well from a quality grade and a rate of gain standpoint. And so looking at that cross, that Rushaw 2 over 9961Y, that's going to give somebody a very unique pedigree that is going to be registrable It'll be in all three databases. As she currently sits today, she is already in the American Wagyu and the American Akushi Association databases, and will be in the Australian Wagyu Association database shortly. And so anyway, yeah, unique offering there. And
and she doesn't have quite the same size to her as
no,
as
she's
Katie
different.
Maru. She's more moderate framed cow.
Yep.
So someone not looking for big Akushi, she's more of a middle of the road type of size cow. So
Yep. And, and that's one thing I'm glad you mentioned, because I mean there are benefits to bigger cows or smaller cows. I mean it all depends on what a guy wants. Because if you're looking to reduce feed cost, you want to reduce mature size. If you're looking to run on really tough ground, on some of the desert out around us, and or down into Utah, Nevada, over to Wyoming, you need a little smaller cow, because a really big cow can't necessarily hold flesh in that kind of an environment. Whereas if you're in an unlimited feed scenario and you got a pile of corn all around you, you want about as big as you can get to get a big hanging size and a big impressive cow and a big rate of gain. So that's one of the things I appreciate about having these different maternal lines present within our program, is we can do some different things. If somebody says I want some more size, we're going to go more so Katie Maru. And if somebody says, hey, I need something that's very, very functional but not too big, I'd go 9961Y. And I'm excited. We're putting those two lines together in this upcoming calf crop, and excited to see what that'll do with some of that functionality coming through from 9961Y, and then some of that docility coming through from the Katie Maru cow, and that size as well and performance, and trying to bring those things together and make the next generation better, which is our job as breeders.
Yeah, and she's not like tiny. She's not like a midget or anything. I mean, she's plenty big, but not.
She's just not as big.
Yeah.
Yep. Be a little bit different on that front. The next one is these are gonna be Star-Lord embryos.
There we go.
So Star-Lord, I love every time I say Star-Lord, I just like grin. So I'd better go on a tangent again just because I can.
Okay.
So Star-Lord, I laugh every time. For anybody that's not seen Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord is what Peter Quill calls himself. So like the front man in Guardians of the Galaxy. So Star-Lord is a Red Galaxy. So see where we're getting at here? Red Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy. And then...
so that's not a nerd at all.
Not even slightly.
Not a cow nerd.
Definitely not a cow nerd or a sci-fi nerd. No, definitely not a nerd. Yeah. So anyway, and it's just way more fun. That's what I was chatting with Aaron the other day, breeding some cows, and I was like, man, it's just way more fun to if I pull out any given cow, bull XYZ or whatever, and I was like, oh, we're going to use this bull to go, AI this cow. And I was like, oh, well, great, But if I'm going to AI to Star-Lord, that's like, it's pretty great. But anyway, so Star-Lord is a bull that we have not released semen on, other than just 3 straws in a previous auction. Is all that's been sold on him. So he has been a limited release bull. He is not an open market bull. He is not a bull that you can just call up and get whatever you want, whenever you want on him. And we took actually female sexed semen from Star-Lord, so it's skewed to make 90% heifer calves rather than the typical 50-50 split. And then we put him over the 577 donor. So all of those embryos, again, this is an embryo lot, those embryos are all going to be polled. So maybe tell people about the 577 donor, your opinion of her and kind of what you see there.
She's great too. She's got nice size to her. But she's really mellow, really easy to handle. Just a good, nice cow. Really like her.
Yeah. 577's a favorite for me. She's a cow I can scratch in the pen. Walk right up to her and just super mellow.
Just slow.
Yeah, real easy to handle.
It was great.
Well, and a super productive embryo donor, has done a great job for us. Well, and she'd be the dam. So we were talking about those heavyweight calves that are so good.
Yep.
She's the dam to some of those heavyweight calves that are just exceptional. I mean, there's the 5115 calf. That one's going to be a stud, no question. And that would be a heavyweight. So sired by a 121 son out of this 577 donor.
Yeah.
And so the 577 donor, if somebody's looking to knock horns off every time, this is how you do it. And that's what I love about a mating like this. We talked about how much we liked Katie Maru, and Katie Maru is the dam of Star-Lord. And then we talked about how great 577 is, as far as mellow, easy, great to handle, and she is homozygous polled. And so in this kind of a cross, the resulting calves are going to be 90% female because we're sorted for females. They're going to be granddaughters of Katie Maru, and they're going to be daughters of 577, and they will all be polled. And so now you're looking at something that brings together Katie Maru genetics with polled genetics, and it gives you a really unique polled purebred calf from these embryos. Frankly, you can't get anywhere else, plain and simple.
And they're just gonna be good. Like you take good and you blend it with good, and you're gonna get at least good.
Yeah, yeah. There's not really any. Yeah, there's not like a, well, this could turn out freakishly wrong. You know, like
right.
worst case scenario is still pretty darn good.
Yeah.
You know, and again, you know, a chunk of embryos here, and these are actually conventional embryos. So are going to typically yield about 15% higher conception rate. Everything else held static. Now, granted, on a small group of embryos, you could have all 5 turn into pregnancies, or I think this is a lot of 4 actually. You could have all 4 turn into pregnancies. You could have none turn into pregnancies. I mean, bear in mind that there is variability when it comes to embryo transfer work. But you should, everything else held static, see about 15% conception rate advantage to these conventional embryos relative to IVF embryos. So that'd be an advantage on those. Jumping ahead to our next 2 lots are going to be semen lots, and these are going to be initial release semen lots. And so all of these first lots will be kind of, you know, more of the feature lots. Basically, that's the way we've got the lots structured. Is you've got feature lots up front, followed by groups of females, followed by embryos, followed by semen. And so there should be both, you know, some really neat and exclusive and exciting lots, you know, up front, and then there ought to be some really good buys down throughout the sale as well. So I always encourage people, you know, get on, watch close, bid early. There are always some really good buys to be had later on. But looking at those sexed semen lots, the first one is going to be all polled female sexed semen. So all polled has been available as a conventional semen bowl. We just got female sexed semen made this year. All polled is our highest use sire on our polled females this year. So like our polled heifers, we were just AIing to him just barely. Like part of the reason we're in here late at night with the wall behind us and not the view out there is because we were out there AIing. And right now, if a polled heifer comes in and needs AI bred, I am going to breed her 9 times out of 10 to all polled female sexed semen. So just, I mean, that's what I think of this bull. Within the polled genetic base, or I guess the polled gene pool, it's been a really limited gene pool. There's just not been a lot of options as far as what to breed to. And a lot of them have had quite a lot of birth weight to them. A lot of the polled bloodlines have. So what makes all polled unique, number one, is it's a really unique pedigree. So his sire is the Sanbon 662H bull from Slater's. And then his dam is a daughter of our 919 donor. And so 4 things, I guess, to really recommend this semen to somebody as you're looking at potentially making this purchase. Number one, you're able to get 90% females, which is just not that much sexed semen on the marketplace.
Yeah.
Number 2, every single one of those babies is going to be polled, like 100% of them. He's a homozygous polled bull. So if you want to get rid of all the horns on your calves and you don't want to have to manually take them off, this is how you do it, is with all polled semen. Number 3 would be he's an outcross pedigree. So if you already have polled cattle and they're all bred pretty similar and you need an outcross, he's going to do that for you. Number 4, on a bull like this would be that he is a grandson of 919, and 919 would be our very highest marbling female we've ever had on actual carcass ultrasound. That cow scans beyond prime plus, like off the charts, beyond where the U.S. chart ends. She's past that, and she's never had corn. You know what I mean? That's on a straight forage diet. You know,
and she's another great cow, easy to handle, just an awesome cow.
Yeah, for sure. And so
she is the reason why we are selling more Akushis.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah.
She's Akushi number 1.
Right. Yeah. She is.
And
she is.
That's what got us to build this whole thing that we're into now.
Yes.
She is an awesome cow.
Well, and 919 kind of does all the things you and I were talking about, selecting on docility, fertility, calving ease, growth, marbling, and longevity. Kind of trying to work all those things together in that priority order. She does it all. You know, 919 is a foundation kind of female, and she's the granddam to this all polled bull. And so I think to be able to do all those things all in one shot, make females, make them polled, make them marble, and give you an outcross pedigree, and to calve easy instead of being heavier birth weight like most of the pedigrees, like, is a pretty darn unique offering. This is going to be the initial female sexed offering, so we are going to do a single unit offering here. So it would be meant for an IVF application. And so if somebody wants to put that across a whole pile of cows, they could. If they wanted to put it across just a single female, they could. But trying to give people a shot at being right there with us. You know, we've just barely started to use that female sexed all polled semen this breeding season.
Sure.
And so again, another one of those feature type lots in that sense.
So you buy that lot and then you combine that with an aspiration.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So you could take all polled and you could buy the lot 1 E133 aspiration, and then you could have polled judo genetics in that kind of a cross right there. That's exactly right. Totally possible.
Not saying that's what you
should
do, but that's how.
But it wouldn't hurt.
That's how it works.
Well, if you're buying one lot, you just as well buy two.
Why not buy them all?
Yeah. So I think that one ought to work good. After that, going over to the full blood side of things. Okay. So, and that's a distinction between the polled cattle. Polled cattle are purebreds. The horn cattle are full bloods, right? So that's the differentiation between the two. There are some people that love one or the other. We deal with plenty of both. There's a lot of value to both subsets of genetics. But anyway, that's the difference between the two. So
there's been demand for both.
There's been demand for both.
We have both.
That's why we have both. That's exactly right. Yep. And so the next lot is going to be red rum, female sexed semen. Red rum, there is very, very little of this semen left anywhere. We've bought out all that there was, all that we could find in the marketplace, and have that here. The red rum bull is going to be a direct judo son. So again, just like that lot 1, that E133 female. The thing that makes him unique is that this is a judo over shig over Momiji Maru. So I'm thinking back through this. He's going to be a Naomi maternal line female, and I have to remember. I want to say Momiji Maru is going to be a shig over Naomi, and he's judo over that. So judo, shig, Naomi. And looking at a bull like this, it's an outcross pedigree. There's very, very, very little judo out there. There's very, very, very little Naomi maternal line out there. And so to bring those things together is of value. And looking at something like that, saying we can bring in this in a female sexed setting, versus having bull. If you don't use female sexed semen and your luck's like mine, they're all going to be bull calves.
With our luck, you see female sex, and you still get
bull calves.
Still get a bull or two in there, yeah.
And that is one thing. That's an important thing to mention. Is female sex semen is about 90% accurate. And we seem to get our full 10% of bull calves. And so that is an important thing for people to be aware of. If they get that lot, is that yes, you're getting a lot better odds of females, and you will almost always get females, 9 out of 10. Yeah. But there are bulls that come from female sexed semen, so that's part of the deal. So again, a feature lot there. And where we're as far along on time as we are, I'll hit just a couple more of these features and then kind of skim through some of the others. And if anybody has any specific questions, or wants to go take a deeper dive on later lots, they're more than welcome to. Like I said, a lot of times these earlier lots they're kind of the initial opportunities. These are the more unique, rare, exclusive type offerings. The later lots, there are always some buys, and so if somebody has questions on an individual lot, feel free to reach out to me.
And reach out before the night of the auction. Yes. Because I know how hard it is for me to get a hold of you on auction day /night / days leading up to the auction. Yeah. It's going to be hard for people to get a hold of you the night of and expect you to be able to answer your phone and return calls right away.
Right. Yeah, I would love to get back to everybody simultaneously, but there's always a pile of people. And I guess that's one thing, just to jump to that while I'm thinking about it before I forget the thought there. The way this auction closes is a racehorse style finish. So to help people understand what that is, what would differentiate this lot or an auction like this, a timed auction from private treaty, is that there is a time it's going to close, right? So that's the difference there. But it's different from a live auction in the sense of a live auction, everything closes out like in lot order generally. So there's an auctioneer, he's going to go lightning speed, he's going to close it out, and then it's gone. Yeah. And he goes to the next one, he's going to close it out, and it's gone. In this one, this is a timed auction, so the whole auction remains open until there is no more bidding on any lots for 5 minutes, is the way that closes out. The opportunity that gives the buyer is if, say, you're in on a certain lot and you're chasing this one, and then all of a sudden it takes off on a tear and it goes past where you want to spend, you can shift to another lot. Even if you're shifting from lot 50 to lot 1, you can do that. Whereas in a live auction setting, lot 1's already sold, lot 1 through 49 are already sold. You've only got the option left on 50 or whatever. So, go ahead.
Well, how many lots are in this auction? That 50
it is going to be around 50.
That's a big auction.
Around 50, yeah.
You have your work cut out for you.
Yeah, I've been trying to get it done for a month, and I'm still not done, and we're like a week or two out. But anyway, so yeah, looking at that's how that'll close out. Will be racehorse style finish. So the auction will stay open. So the auction closes at 6 p.m. Mountain on January 15. So if somebody gets nothing else out of this whole thing, like put on your calendar, January 15 is the day, because every auction we've ever run, the next day somebody, oh, I didn't realize, it was closed or whatever. I'd have bought this, tried to bid on that, or I couldn't get in. It's like, okay, so important things to understand here. As soon as we get that auction catalog put together and up, we will open the thing for bidding. So it'll be open. So there's a lot of these timed auctions. There's only a real tiny finite window where you can bid. I want it to be, I understand how manic my schedule is, and I know that the rest of the world is as bad, if not worse. And so I don't want to be like, well, you're going to, work by my schedule or not at all. Like, look, as soon as we open this catalog, you can bid, and you should bid, because there's always a couple of these lots that somebody gets on them early, and then they kind of just sit. And so they'll close out, and they'll close out cheap. You know what I mean? People say, oh, well, I'm not going to bid because, well, I'll just get outbid at the tail end. You might. I mean, there's always a flurry of bids at the tail end. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a good chunk of these lots that are going to see a whole pile of bidding at the end of the day on the 15th. Yeah. But there's generally some real good buys to be had if somebody gets on one early.
Right.
So as soon as that catalog opens, get on them early. And the way the platform works, it'll text you if you get outbid. And so then you can hop back on again at your convenience in the days leading up to the deal, or at least the hours leading up until it closes, rather than it being like, okay, right at the tail end, I wait till I'm in these little 5-minute windows, and every time somebody hits, it extends. Because what happens is it's supposed to close at 6, but invariably it takes anywhere from 30 to 60 to 90 minutes, sometimes a couple hours to close the thing, because people will keep bidding for 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes, another bid will come in. So you'll see a lot of bids at the tail end there. So I would, again, invite people, number one, bid early. Like, get on and put your bids in. Like, it's not going to hurt you anything. Like, you're literally, the earlier you get the bid in, the cheaper bid you get. Like, if you get in and get the earlier bid and somebody else was only willing to bid the same as you, but you got it first, you're going to own the thing. You know what I mean? Unless they're willing to outbid, right? So get in, get on it early, and then mark in that the 15th is the day the thing's going to close. It will close on the 15th. It starts closing at 6 p.m. Mountain, so 5 Pacific, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And it'll start closing out at that point. Sometimes it closes out relatively quickly, 5, 10, 20 minutes. Usually 30 to 60 is what it takes, as far as, because people always bid right there at the tail end.
I know a couple of them went 2 or 3 hours.
We've had some go for forever. So get in, bid early, bid often. You can definitely get a buy. Getting in on them early, I want to encourage people to do that. So, looking at just a couple more of these feature lots, and then we'll kind of try to wrap her up so that we don't bore anybody too terribly. But so an open, this is a female that I probably should have this one lotted earlier, and who knows, maybe I'll bump her up in the lot order.
3426
is a direct daughter of the 121 donor, and she's a yearling. And so 121, again, Rusha, Hikari, Judo, Homare, straight foundation pedigree, lot of proof behind the female, high weaning weight type cattle. If you're looking to add performance, size, scale, structure, and an outcross pedigree, like 121 cattle are the way to do it. And with a daughter like this
3426,
you get a yearling daughter, and she's sired by
Red Galaxy, who is a trait leader for calving ease and marbling as per the American Wagyu Association database.
And if you get a yearling daughter of 121, now you don't have to wait for like embryos to be born and then raise the calf or whatever else. You're jumping right to, this female could make embryos tomorrow.
Yeah.
This female could carry a calf tomorrow. You can AI her how you want. You could aspirate her how you want. You can, raise a calf and then make embryos later. Like, all of the hard work is done on a female like that. And she comes with free delivery anywhere in the continental United States included. And so you don't have to worry about how am I going to get her from Idaho to wherever. Like, the live lots specifically, so we don't do that on the frozen lots, but the live lots, the shipping is included.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't get that
anywhere. No, but no one else is nuts enough to offer free shipping on 100% of what they sell.
Just us.
But just us. And so, so that's one definitely not to overlook. That gives you a real jump to get a 121 daughter like that is ready to go. You're accelerating things by a year, if not 2 or 3, as far as just, okay, we're jumping right to we've got a donor candidate in the pen. Couple more things. 3345 is going to go in. We just bred her tonight. She was bred to all polled female sexed semen. So she, if she conceived, which we won't know for another month or so, but if she conceived, she'd be carrying a heifer calf. She herself is a heterozygous polled female, and all polled is a homozygous polled bull. So that calf has a 90%. I should say she's got about a 60% chance of being pregnant. That'd be like a normal conception rate.
Yeah.
If she conceives, she got a 90% chance of that baby being a female. She's got a 100% chance of that baby being polled and a 50% chance of that baby being homozygous polled. So there's all your stats on if you're running your math as to looking at a polled individual. And then after that, get through just a couple more of these. 3362 would be a purebred Akiushi female, so might be a real buy there. And again, just getting you a lot of time. You know what I mean? You're not buying one that's got a long time till she's ready to go. That's a mature breedable female. 9051 is going to be is an Angus bred female. She's in the top 1% of the entire breed for performance. A couple other things you'll see down below: some Master Chef embryos. You'll see some high performance Angus embryos. We've got some more Rusha 2 female sexed semen. And then semen on all of our herd bulls as well. So a really well-rounded offering, pretty extensive offering. I think there's going to be some buys to be had. I think there's some really unique things that people should consider spending some money to get those early lots. You know, I mean, it's buying the cattle is the cheap part. You know, I mean, the rest for the rest of forever, you're going to be feeding them, you're going to be reproducing them, you're going to be multiplying them, you're going to have to market them. So I would tell people too, you know, there's value on both ends of this auction. If you buy on the front end and you spend some money to get something good, that is the cheap part of the business, is getting into it. And you just as well get a really, really good one and multiply really, really good ones and start with the very, very best rather than plow a bunch of feed and time and money into multiplying something subpar. But by the same token, there will be quality at the tail end of this sale that sells for well under what it retails at.
Yeah.
And so I would tell people, get on that sale, bid early, bid when it opens, ask any questions you got early. I'm happy to answer. I may not answer quickly because we're drowning with breeding cows and keeping up with everything else, but I will answer. Reach out to me and then be there and be ready when it closes, because January 15th at 6 p.m. invariably, you may have held that bid for a week and you were winning and you had it all, and somebody comes in that last 5 minutes. So just be there and be ready to bid when the thing closes January 15th at 6 p.m. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Got Any Cows podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and visit us anytime at gotanycows.com.